Learning about storytelling by analyzing the films that came before us is our favorite way to improve as storytellers ourselves. Today we're going to be looking at a device in films that many storytellers use to add layers to conversations. This device is the story within the story. It changes the dynamic of the scene because the character listening to the story gives over control of the scene to the character telling it. It also breaks up the pace of the story because instead of an action-reaction rhythm, one character tends to monologue the story, slowing the pace down. We will start off our discussion of this story device with The Winter Soldier.
You know, they used to play music.
The writers use a trick to get us into the story. They have Captain America mention the lack of music in the elevator. This does two things. It shows that even though these two characters were at odds in the previous scene, they're still on good terms. The second thing that this line does is it allows Nick Fury to get into the story about his grandfather who operated an elevator. The important thing to know about this story is the context. In the previous scene, these two characters were arguing over the parameters of the operation they just ran, with Cap saying that he needs to know all of the information about the operation, while Fury argued that it's safer if he doesn't know everything.
Nobody spills the secrets because nobody knows them all.
Except you.
So Fury uses the story to hammer home his point from the previous scene. Fury's point is that he feels like the world needs to be kept safe from the bad guys, saying that they can't afford to be reactionary to the threats. The story that Fury tells is how his grandfather would walk through the neighborhood at night with his tips from the day.
He'd say hi, people would say hi back. Time went on, neighborhood got rougher. He'd say hi, they'd say keep on stepping.
Cap goes from argumentative to hanging on Fury's every word.
You ever get mugged?
Cap asking about potential muggings allows Fury to put the nail in the coffin of the story and prove his point through the story.
Every week some punk would say, what's in the bag?
What would he do?
He'd show him. Bunch of crumpled ones and a loaded .22 Magnum.
And now we move on to Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. In this scene we have Palpatine telling Anakin the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Sheev's goal in this scene is to plant the seed in Anakin that he needs Palpatine's help in order to save Padme from her future death. And to do that with any amount of subtlety, he knows that he needs a spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. And in this case, that's a story.
I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi would tell you.
One that he knows Anakin doesn't know, which forces Anakin to listen. And by telling him the story of a Sith who could manipulate life through the Force, he baits the hook with something Anakin can't resist. Anakin is so concerned for Padme that he is willing to do whatever it takes to keep her safe.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Plagueis, teaching his apprentice everything he knows, leaves the door open for Anakin to seek out this power as well. And by saying that this power can only be learned from a Sith, gives Anakin an ultimatum. Stay with the Jedi and watch Padme die, or seek out the Sith and save her.
So uncivilized.
Next we have Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Jack Sparrow and his newly acquired crew are headed for the Isle de Muerta. Will is there to get Elizabeth back, but Jack is there to get revenge on Barbossa and to get his ship back. And he wants to use Will to do just that. Will knows very little about the ways of being a pirate, which leads to asking questions of the one person who seems to have all his marbles, Mr. Gibbs. The story that Mr. Gibbs tells of Jack serves two purposes. The first is revelation. Up until this point, Will has been going off of hunches about Jack, but here he learns that Jack used to be the captain of the Black Pearl.
What? You failed to mention that.
This bit of information sheds some light on Jack's motives. Had he been the typical pirate Will thought he was, he would have taken the freedom that Will gave him and betrayed him at the earliest opportunity. But he didn't, and now Will knows why. The second purpose of this story is foreshadowing.
He escaped the island, and he still has that single shot. Oh, he won't use it, though, save on one man. He's mutinous for his mate.
Barbossa.
The story turns humorous when Mr. Gibbs gets into Jack's escape. This leads to the audience dismissing this as just a funny story. But when the foreshadowing pays off, it enriches the story as a whole.
The code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.